Good morning. I am Reverend Dr. Malcolm T. Bird, president of the New Conversation on Race and Ethnicity Incorporated, better known as NewCore. Welcome to a special series of brief mayoral candidate conversations concerning their lived experiences and understandings about race and how such understanding will inform their leadership if elected as mayor of Philadelphia. This invitation was extended to all the remaining mayoral candidates to have a recorded individual conversation with the leadership of NewCore. 2 mayoral candidates accepted our invitation. These brief conversations will subsequently be posted on the website and social media platform of NewCore for public viewing beginning on May the 1st of 2023. You should note that NewCore is nonpartisan and does not make political endorsements. It simply wants to help voters and other citizens to hear directly from prospective leaders on race that is direct and clear. In Philadelphia, the strong current of race seems to affect or influence the social climate and flow of public life in our city. Leaders must be courageous, sober, and intentional in how they accomplish public policy and lead our city. Today, we will hear from mayoral candidate Judge James DeLeon. Before we hear from him, however, some of NewCore's participating leaders are present, and we invite you to introduce themselves before we begin our conversation with the candidate. I'm pleased to welcome NewCore's Vice President, Dr. Marsha Brown Woodard, to share NewCore's mission and vision. Dr. Woodard?
Good morning. It is good to be here. And I am Dr. Marsha Brown Woodard, also member of the staff at Commerce Seminary. I want to share a little bit about NewCore's mission. And the mission of NewCore is to harness the power of sincere conversation about race and ethnicity, to use it to break down barriers and facilitate mutual understanding and respect, to build bridges and to promote truth, understanding, and reconciliation. And we do that because we believe that conversation is action. And because we believe that conversation is action, we create safe space to share the things that make us uncomfortable. We move past the limits of polite chat to form trusted community. Conversation, as we define it, is valuable in and of itself. It needs not be only a vehicle to other action. It is action. We believe that conversation is action. And therefore, we are committed to using the power of conversation to positively transform people and situations. And so our mission and our call to action is to use conversation as a vehicle to help us hear one another's story and therefore learn from each other.
That's a great mission.
Amen. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Leon. What I'll do, I'm Reverend David Brown. I'm part of the pastoral staff at First Church of Media. I'm also part of the administration here at Temple University. And I get to ask the first question, and then my colleague, Adam Kessler, will ask and introduce himself. And the second question, just to build off of what my colleague, Dr. Woodard, has already shared, this is really just that, a conversation. And the questions that we ask are simply to tease out more of your story. So if you wouldn't mind, can you give us, briefly, what has been your experience, your lived experience, as it relates to race in the job that you do and in the pursuit of serving as mayor for the city of Philadelphia?
Well, truthfully, race has always been part of my life basically when I was able to understand what race was about. I grew up in West Philadelphia at a single parent's home. My father left, so it was my mother and my brother who she raised. I went to a Catholic school, Our Lady of Victory, 53rd and Vine Streets, and I went to West Philadelphia Catholic High School for boys. During the summer, I spent my summers in Charleston, South Carolina, with my relatives there. That's where I really realized racism, because it's Charleston, and it was during the 50s and 60s. And that's where they had the separate bathrooms for blacks and whites, and where blacks couldn't go into the stores. They had to go in the back door, things like that. I marched with the students who were taking on the responsibility of desegregating lunch counters. When I was 12 years old, I would march with them. And because of my marching with them, my family was scared for my life, and they sent me back to Philadelphia. But the most racist situation that I ever had in my life was riding a bicycle in Charleston. It was both, I had my bike sent down, and I had my brother riding on the bar. And another friend of ours was riding in front. At that time, I guess I was 12 and my brother was 10. And my other friend, he was 13. He was older than us. And we were just riding down the street, and a white motorcycle cop told us to pull over. So we pulled over, and the cop asked us, he told my brother to get off the handlebar. And then he asked us where we lived, and we told him we lived around the corner. So my friend that was up front, the 14-year-old, he started pedaling away. And the motorcycle cop put his hand on his gun and said, "Boy, if you pedal that bike one step further, I'm going to blow you off it."
Wow.
Yeah. So then he stopped. So then he told us, he told all three of us to get off our bike and walk our bikes home. But now across the street, this was the, like I said, Charleston, this was at Calhoun and King Street. And across the street was the Citadel, the military academy, and it was their playground. And there were 3 white boys and 3 black boys that were playing football in a mixed team. So the cop happened to look across the street and saw them playing. And he took a second look, and then he walked over there to him and he called for the football. So so you saw him talking to the 6 boys, and the 6 boys, they started walking away together as a group. So then the cop said no. He shook his head and he called them all back, and he pointed to the 3 white boys and he told them to walk one way, and he looked at the 3 black guys and he told them to walk another way.
Wow.
And he kept the football. So that was the most racist situation that I'd ever witnessed.
Let me invite my colleague Adam Kessler to ask the next question that might tease your story out a little bit more. Go ahead.
Hi, Judge. Adam Kessler. I'm the former director of the Jewish Community Relations Council in Philadelphia and spent my years working for Jewish Federation. I'm now occasionally retired, involved in many volunteer activities, including Ceasefire PA. I know gun violence is a major issue for you. I'd like to ask you, since we don't have a lot of time, this is an operating theory among a lot of us. Something we were just discussing before you got on the call, that racial tension seems to be inbred in our country, that we in some ways are still fighting the Civil War in the United States. I don't expect you to be all-knowing and to have all of the answers, but as mayor, what is it that you would do? Do you think that you would try to do to help improve the situation with the clearly intense rising tensions in the Asian community, in the African American community, in the Jewish community? all of whom are feeling a surge in racial tension.
Well, one of the problems is gentrification issues that are happening in the city right now. Let's take the Chinese, for example, well, the Asians, where a stadium is being forced down their throats in downtown Philadelphia. The situation, I'm an engineer by training in the military. So I know that in order for a stadium to be there that would accommodate 18,000 fans on any night for a game or whatever activity is going on at that stadium, that you have to have wider roads. You even see that in our stadium complex where the roads are wider in order to accommodate the cars that would have to arrive at that venue. So saying that, you would have to expand the roadways. And in expanding the roadways, it would take out a lot of the Asian businesses. So what I call that is extreme gentrification. Now, what's happening is that certain forces in the city are basically forcing groups of people against other groups of people for jobs. So you have Blacks, which have wanted to have jobs for so long, good paying jobs. And the stadium, they're saying, well, by putting this stadium here, we're going to give good paying jobs. So this is forcing the Black people against the yellow person, the Asian person, specifically for jobs, when it doesn't have to be, because you don't have to put a stadium there. Wherever a stadium is put, you're going to have jobs. Now, as far as the Jewish situation is concerned, what happens is because they want to force the Palestinian issue, because they're looking at the Palestinians as normal. But the fact is, it's not publicized enough that the Palestinians are actually paying people to assassinate Jewish people. So we're giving Palestinian days, let's celebrate Palestine. But the reality is that the PLO, the PLA, has a policy in place where they're paying the families of people who have assassinated not just Jewish people, but non-Jewish people. And the people in Philadelphia don't know about this. So when the Jewish people speak out against it, they think that the Jewish people are wrong to speak out because they're not putting the facts out to the people as to what the Jewish people are going through with the Palestinian issues. So all that entailed, it comes back to me as mayor. So one of the things that I'm doing is let's look at the distrust between the African-American community and the police, because we've seen that the police bring a heavy hand at times when they come to an occasion where a person is mentally sick and just needs hospitalization, and the individual ends up dead. Well, what I propose as mayor, and that what I would have, is a buffer system in between that, between the community and the police department. It's called a community coach, where the individual would be trained in, or individuals, of course, would be trained in anger management, post-traumatic stress disorder, recognition of opioid addiction, how to diffuse situations, everything that would be needed in order to come to a non-criminal scene to diffuse the situation without the involvement of police. Now, what would happen is that when you would have a non-criminal incident, 311 would be called rather than 911. And these specialist people would be the ones who would answer the call to diffuse the situation. Now, if police were needed for that situation, they would have a silent alarm where they would be able to have police backup come if needed. But If they came on the scene and police were there and they recognized it as a mental issue, they would have the authority to tell the police to stand down, that they have this. And if they need police, they'll let the police know.
Oh, I'm sorry, Marcia, you're muted, sorry.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, you put yourself back on mute.
Oh,
No, you're good, Judge.
Oh, okay, okay.
Now,
So
now,
Gotcha. Go ahead.
yeah, I'm back.
There you go.
Judge, thank you. And I'm wondering, as I listen to you and as I hear back, as you were sharing your story, would that have impacted, you think, if they had been able to have people better trained when you had been in Charleston, if they had had a different kind of perspective? Do you think that maybe would have changed the outcome of what you experienced that day? Or how do you think that might have experienced?
Now, Judge, you're on mute for some reason.
You were still on mute, Your Honor.
okay.
Now
Am I
we
still
got
on?
you. Got
Yes.
you. Mhm.
Okay. So I don't know what kind of training would have, I think that was ingrown ingrown racism at that time. I don't think the only training nowadays would not have helped back then. But we do need training going forward today here in Philadelphia. And that's what I propose, because remember, as a judge in my courtroom, everyone was treated with courtesy and respect. So I expect all my departments, all the people that are working in city government who are working for the people, to treat the people with courtesy and respect. So I expect that police would have to go through retraining, but that's the reason why I have that buffer in there, because it would allow the police to do police activities and not become engaged with activities that were really not for the police to handle. So training is definitely important. And as a Coast Guard officer in the Coast Guard Auxiliary, I was for 10 years the diversity and inclusion officer for both Pennsylvania, Delaware, and New Jersey. So it's ingrained in me to bring inclusion and diversity within the workforce of Philadelphia, and that the workforce of Philadelphia treats the citizen with courtesy and respect. That's what I expect. That's the way I govern my courtroom and the court when I was supervising judge.
Your Honor, I want to thank you for joining us on this morning with such willingness and transparency to share your own lived experiences. I would like to just wrap up, if you don't mind, with a question that we'd ask you to give some consideration to. In view of the state of race relations in Philadelphia, should you be elected mayor, would you be interested in convening a mayor's conversation on matters of race and bring together the various disparate community members?
Yes, because in order for Philadelphia to work, I need to have Philadelphians working together. We need to understand what our issues are and how to overcome those issues. So conversation is, of course, the first step. Conversation followed by cooperation, followed by coordination, the 3 C's, in order to bring our city together into a better light.
Amen. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. You have heard from mayoral candidate James DeLeon, retired municipal court judge, and as you've heard, an accomplished military executive as well.